Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear sisters. Let's start our session. I request Sister Tahseen to do the recitation, please. Can you raise your hand, Sister Tahseen? Or Mariam, she's there with you. Yes, sorry, Taskeen. Yes, so I'm asking you to unmute, dear Taskeen. Please start with the recitation. Jazakallah khair.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد وصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما وكلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair, Jazakallah khair, dear Sister Taskeen, for the beautiful recitation of the Surah Al-Fajr. Now let's start our session. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي زدني علما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. So, dear sisters, welcome to our session. I hope you're all excited to learn a new surah today. So let's start, inshallah. I will start with the summary of Surah Al-Fajr. Surah Al-Fajr is a Makki surah and it has 30 verses. This surah highlights the historical lessons and it tells us about human nature as well as consequences of one's actions in the hereafter. Okay. Then the surah begins by swearing upon significant times and events. It emphasizes the rise and fall of powerful nations that disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then, after that, it describes human attitudes towards wealth and trials. So, how do human beings behave when they are given wealth, and how do they behave when they undergo some trial? It also exposes arrogance and ingratitude. The surah then vividly portrays the horrors of the day of judgment. Okay, where the oppressors will regret their actions. Finally, it ends on a beautiful and a hopeful note, addressing the righteous soul with Allah's invitation to enter paradise. So, who will be getting paradise? Those who are righteous and who obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, in a very beautiful manner. So, now let's proceed. Ayat by ayat, inshallah. Okay, so the surah starts again with the oath. Let's start it with first Bismillah Rahman Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Now the surah starts with an oath again, just like the other surahs in Juzz 30. This surah is also starting with an oath, emphasizing the importance of different times. Okay, this surah is emphasizing the importance of the time of dawn. Okay, and then night and day. So by the dawn, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is swearing by the dawn. Now this coming of dawn and this changing of night into day is a very strong and important activity which takes place in the universe. Okay, this phenomena is unique, and if this stops, what happens? The world will come to an end. So if the night doesn't meet up day, or day doesn't end up into night, the world is going to collapse and end. The earth will end. That day will be the last day. Okay, so by the dawn. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking the oath of this time because it is very important. This is the time of ibadah. Okay, so all of us should make sure that we offer the Fajr prayer, okay, in time, inshallah, because this prayer is the heaviest on the munafiqun. Okay, and the believers, they are only those who offer this prayer on time. Okay, so by the dawn, then coming to the next ayat, by the 10 nights. Now here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is again taking an oath of the 10 nights. Now which 10 nights are these that are mentioned here? The 10 nights, the first 10 nights of the month of Zulhijjah. Okay, and some scholars also say this applies to the Laylatul Qadr, the nights of Ramadan which are coming, but most of the scholars do the tafsir as the first 10 nights of the month of Zulhijjah. Okay, it's very important. The days and nights of Zulhijjah are very important. Okay, now moving to the next ayat, and by the even and the odd of all the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this is a very interesting and beautiful ayat. Okay, now can you tell me, dear sisters, what is even and what is odd here? Okay, before that, let me narrate a hadith to you related to this 10 nights. Here, how we know that this ayat is talking about the 10 nights of Zulhijjah through a hadith which is related to this ayat. Okay, narrated Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "No good deeds done on other days are superior to those done on the first 10 days of Zulhijjah." Then the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Not even jihad." He replied, "Not even jihad, except that a man who does it by putting himself and his property in danger and does not return in any of those things, with any of those things." So the importance of these 10 nights and days are emphasized by this hadith. Okay, now coming to the next part, and by the even and the odd of all the creations of Allah. Now, dear sisters, here I would like to ask you, what is even and what is odd that this ayat is implying? Yes. So again, there are different opinions about this, the even and odd. Okay. Now some scholars explain this even and odd as the even is the creation. That is, all the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is falls under the even, and odd is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is himself. Because everything can be compared. One thing can be compared with another, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can't be compared to anything, or there is nothing like him. So he is the odd one and the creation is even. So some scholars interpret this ayat as the even and the odd as the creation and the creator, that is all of us, and the creator, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. And then another set of scholars, they interpret the even as the slaughtering or the sacrifices, and Arafah as the odd day. So they interpret it in this way. That is, the 9th of Zulhijjah is known as the odd day after the 8th Zulhijjah. And also, some other scholars also say that this ayat is talking about the Witr Salah. So Witr is single now, that's why they odd is here referring to the Witr Salah. So there are different interpretations to this ayat. Okay. And then now moving on to the next ayat, and by the night when it departs. Now again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing our attention or reminding us of another of his powerful creations, that is the night. Okay. So this is also Allah's creation, and it comes, why does the night come? Yes, it comes to provide us rest, to grant us peace, in order so that we rejuvenate ourselves, we become fresh, and we sleep, and we again become ready for the next day to work hard. Okay. So the night is also a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking its oath, and by the night when it departs. Okay. Okay. Now moving on to the next ayat number 5. There are indeed in them the other above oaths. Okay, so all these above oaths, in them there are sufficient proofs for men of understanding. So for whom these act as proof, for who does benefit from these reminders? Only those who have understanding, only those who have aql, only those who apply their aql, okay, or who want to understand and think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these reminders, these above oaths, it will only benefit those who understand. Okay, these are sufficient proofs for men of understanding. And what does it tell us to do? That they should avoid all kinds of sins and disbeliefs. So all these powerful reminders are sent towards us to remind us that we should avoid all kinds of sins and disbelief, all oppressions, all wrongdoings, every sin that we are indulged in, we should stop immediately. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us or taking oath about these powerful things, and then reminding us about leaving all the sins. These things are sufficient proof for men who understand, or women who understand. Okay. Now coming to the next ayat. Saw you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not how your Lord dealt with Ad. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing his prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and telling him or describing him how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dealt with the community of Ad. Now here different nations are mentioned, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dealt with them. These nations were very powerful, much more powerful even than we are today. They have developed so much scientifically that there was a nation which also had an artificial sun. So they were very powerful nations which passed away, but because of their transgressions, because of their oppressions, and because of their disobedience, all of their fate was, they were all destroyed. Okay. They all met with a very bad fate. Okay. Their destiny in the end became destruction. Why? Because they disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning those communities. 4 communities are mentioned here, or 4 ummas which passed away, which were very, very powerful, even much more powerful than us today, than human beings are today. Okay. So there was the community of Ad, or the ummah of Ad, or the people of Ad, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding or asking Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that didn't you see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed it? Now how can Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam see that? We know these incidents through the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing to the Quranic stories about these incidents and bringing our attention towards them, of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already mentioned about this community and what they did, how they transgressed, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them. Then coming to the next ayat, ayat number 7 of Iram, who were very tall, like lofty pillars. Now the community of Iram, they were very tall, very huge human beings. They were so lofty and so strong that they were like pillars. But still the whole ummat or the whole community of Iram was destroyed. Why? Or all the whole nation of Iram was destroyed. Why? Because of its transgressions and its disobedience. Okay, now coming to the next ayat, the like of which were not created in the land. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about these Iram people or the nation of Iram, is that their kind of community was never created. They were so strong and so tall. Even now you don't find anyone like that. Their height and their strength was so great. Okay, now coming to the next side, and with Samud, who what used to do, they used to carve out rocks in the valley to make dwellings. So they were also a very strong community, very strong nation, and they used to carve out stones or mountains in order to make their living dwellings. Okay, in order to make their homes, their houses. So this was also a very strong and very powerful nation which was destroyed because of its disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is again bringing our attention towards Pharaoh. And with Pharaoh, who had the stakes, so he was a very powerful king. He had lots of wealth. We can't even imagine the kind of wealth he had and the kind of power Allah had granted him at that time. So he was one of the most powerful kings of the world. Okay, even today, if we compare his power, it will not be able to compare with the different nations that are today. He had a lot of wealth and a lot of power. Okay, so now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is again reminding us about this king. His name was Pharaoh, this emperor, and he had a lot of power, and he also had stakes. What are the stakes? He used to torture men by binding them to these stakes. So he had stakes also, and he used these to torture men by binding them to it. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about Pharaoh further, and who did transgress beyond bounds in the land. So his transgression was also exemplary. Just like his power was exemplary, just like his wealth was exemplary, similarly his transgression was also exemplary. He used to exult with pride. He had so much, he had lost control over his own nafs. He used to consider himself, nauzubillah, equivalent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, or maybe even greater. So with all these, his wealth and his power, he used to transgress beyond bounds in the lands. Okay, and he used to oppress the people also. Not just that, he didn't even consider only, this was not his sin, but he used to oppress a lot. He was a great oppressor. So, and ayat 12 tells us, and he used to make therein much mischief. So he was a mischief maker and used to make lots of mischief by oppressing people, by taking up their property, by killing anyone he wanted to. You know, he was one of the greatest oppressors also. Now, so your Lord, now ayat 13 tells us about the different punishments or torments which reached all these different nations. So your Lord poured on them different kinds of severe torment. All of them faced severe torment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't, give the torment easily and quickly. He gives lots of chances. He gives many chances to human beings, to different nations, to change themselves, to improve themselves. The whole Quran is a reminder for all of us. Okay, so he gives a lot of chances to people to change. But when the people don't change, when they don't listen, they continue doing what they want to, when they continue doing oppressions, then suddenly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's torment reaches them. Okay, so your Lord poured on them different kinds of torment. Now coming to the next ayat, ayat 14, verily your Lord is ever watchful over them. Now here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing our attention to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had watched over those people who used to oppress. Even now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. Each and every one of us is under scrutiny. We are being watched over what we are doing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching the oppressors of today as well. So everything is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is has encompassed everything. Okay, nothing is beyond him. So he's watching us today. Everything is being notified. It's written, it's noted down, and we will all be given our accounts on the day of judgment. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had dealt with the previous nations, and now he's watching all of us and what we are doing, and everything is being noted. Okay, now coming to the next ayat, that is ayat 15. Now ayat number 15 and 16, dear sisters, talks about human nature. It explains it in a very nice way. The nature of gratitude and ingratitude. Okay, it explains how an ingrate person, the ingrate person does when he is given any nemat by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or when he is rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and this applies to all times. If you want to study psychology, you will find different personalities very nicely etched out in the Quran. All kinds of personalities are mentioned here. Human nature or human psychology will not be beyond this. The different nature of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning in different surahs of the whole Quran, when you read it, and when you read it from that perspective, you will realize that all the different natures of human beings are mentioned here. Different kinds of persons are mentioned here. Okay, from Surah Al-Baqarah till Juzz Amma. So here, now these two ayats are talking about the ungrateful or ingrate person. And as for man, when his Lord tries him by giving him honor and bounties. Now here, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is granting bounties and honoring a person, what he does? He says in exaltation, he exalts, my Lord has honored me. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is honoring a person and giving him lots of wealth and honor and bounties, what does he do? He starts exulting. He becomes ungrateful. He is not thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather he becomes proud. He becomes arrogant. Okay. So what he says, my Lord has honored me. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored me, but he never is grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then ayat 16 tells us, and when he tries him by straightening his means of life. Now, if, for example, if someone or any person, any ungrateful person, he faces some difficulty in his life, or he's tried by some means, what does he say? He says, my Lord has humiliated me. So these are the basic two reactions that you will get from any ungrateful person, from any person who doesn't, who isn't thankful, or who is not heedless about Allah's bounties. That person is heedless about Allah's bounties. He has actually he has no amount of gratefulness in his personality. So any person who is arrogant is fitting into this ayat. Okay. Now, and whenever that person, if he faces any sort of trials, what happens? He start complaining. So complaining and ingratitude, these are the two sifat or the two characteristics of a person who is disobedient, who is an oppressor. And how is this person oppressing? He's oppressing his own self by not thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So these two ayats points out to the nature of human beings. Very few people in this world are actually grateful. Most of the people of this world, most of human beings are ungrateful. They are not thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the bounties. And whenever they face any sort of difficulties in life, even a small amount of trial, if that person is facing, again he starts complaining. So we should be very careful, very, very careful not to complain. This complaining nature and this kind of ingratitude are the sifat or the characteristics of those who don't have firm belief, okay, or who are hypocrites, or who are away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's remembrance. Okay, so we should be very careful not to complain. Okay, so dear sisters, now I will give you a situation. Suppose I will give you a situation. I will ask you a question regarding that. So suppose you're traveling, you are traveling by road, maybe or on a car, or maybe you are on the sea, you're traveling by sea and you're on a boat. So suddenly you are seeing that the boat is about to capsize, okay, or the car is about to turn over. So what will you do? what will be your immediate reaction? Will you take out your phone and start complaining to your friend that my car is about to overturn, or my boat is about to capsize? Will you do that? What will be our immediate reaction? Can you tell me? If we face such a situation, imagine that you are in a car, or imagine that you are on a ship, and just in the middle of the sea, your ship is about to capsize, or your boat is about to capsize, or your car is about to overturn. It's imminent that your car is going to overturn now. So will you do? What will be your immediate reaction? Can you tell me? Yes, exactly. Dua, dua, and only dua. So our immediate reaction will be raising our hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dua. Okay, this will be immediate reaction, because we know that at that time, or in this difficult situation, only and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take us out from this, right? So similarly, whenever we face any form of difficulty in our life, any difficult situation in our life, whom should we turn to? We should turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately, not rather taking out our phone or telling about our problems to people. We should immediately start telling about our problems to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So this should be our attitude. The moment we face any trial, the moment we face any difficulty, the moment we have any situation, we are in a situation which we don't like, we should immediately turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all these situations comes in our life only to make us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we leave Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and turn away from him and start complaining and complain to people, what will happen? This trial will become a punishment for us. It will take us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rather than connecting us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So just like when you're about to drone, or when you're about to face an accident, what we do, we immediately start making dua. Similarly, whenever we face any trials in our life or any difficult situation in our life, our immediate reaction should be to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately, to start offering salah, to keep on doing dua. And this should be a part of our life. We should continue doing it. Even in ease, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is granting us something good, what should be our immediate reaction should be? Suppose you got a new phone. Okay, suppose your parents have gifted you a new phone, or your husband has gifted you a new phone for Eid, or anything, maybe a beautiful dress you got. Immediately, what will be your reaction? To click a picture and show it on social media. This is what we do. So this is a form of arrogance. What should be our immediate reaction? Our immediate reaction should be thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather than spreading this, that I have got this, or spreading it amongst people, what should we do? We should immediately turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So both in ease and in difficulty and in ease, in both situations. The moment we are given something, some bounties, we should do shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should fall down in prostration. Okay, we should immediately thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rather than clicking a photo and putting it up on status. Okay, and this has now become a norm. Even in difficult situations, we take a picture, click a picture and share it on social media. So what should be our immediate reaction? Should be turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us, we should immediately turn and thank him. And the moment we face some difficult situation, we should turn towards him. Okay, so if we do that, we will become amongst the righteous slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because here, these ayats are clearly mentioning the characteristics of the disobedient slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is complaining and ingrateness or ungratefulness. Okay, so we should continuously check ourselves that what is our reaction when we receive something good, and what is our reaction. First reaction counts. So what is our reaction when we face some difficult situation? Okay, now moving on to the next ayat number 17. Nay, but you treat not the orphans with kindness and generosity, that is, you neither treat them well nor give them their exact right or inheritance. Now here, these ayats are telling us about the importance of treating the orphans well, okay, and actually taking care of them. See, what we do, most of us, we give out money. We send money to some madrasa. just gives money or something to some organization which is dealing with orphans. We don't actually do it ourselves, but what we should do, we should actually treat them well. We should actually go and meet these orphans. We should try to take out time and meet them personally. We should try to spend some time with them. Okay, what we should do, we should give gifts to them personally so that they feel loved. There's a very beautiful story about Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and how he set out for an orphan. So there were children who used to play. Okay, I'm telling you the story. This is a very beautiful story. Please listen to it with attention. So there were many. This was a norm that children used to play and their parents used to sit and watch over them. Okay, at the time of our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this is the mafhum of a story. Okay, so parents used to sit and watch over their children playing. Now there was an orphan boy and he had no one. He didn't have anyone to watch over him. So now what Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did, in spite of his busy schedule, he was much more busy than any of us. Okay, he was busy and engrossed in doing dawah towards non-Muslims. So in spite of, and also doing other work like qital and other things. Okay, he was so busy. So in spite of that, he took out time and he sat there and looked over that orphan child so that the child doesn't feel that there is no one of mine. So beautiful, isn't it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made a point, okay, to sit there. He sat there and he watched over that orphan boy. He took out special time to watch over that boy so that he doesn't feel lonely and he doesn't feel that nobody is there to look after him. So beautiful. So we can also do such small acts of kindness. And believe me, we should not say that no, this is not possible for us. It is possible for each and every of us. Just give me 1 minute. Yes, I'm sorry. I was coughing. Yes. So all of us gets these kind of opportunities. The thing is that we have to search for it. When you really have this intention in your heart and when you want to do a good deed, it comes to you. It opens up for you. You will get such an opportunity to do these kind of work. You will get these opportunities to really go and deal with these orphans one-on-one. And we should try to do it, inshallah. So it is a very beautiful story which always inspires me. The story of our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how he used to take out special time, even in spite of all the work he was doing, just for the orphan child. And also there's another very beautiful hadith. I think all of you must be knowing that. It is that the mafhum is that the person who looks after an orphan will be with Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, just like the forefinger is with the middle finger. So like that person will be attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger in Jannah. Okay. So we will be with Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in Jannah together with him if we really take good care of the orphans, and not just giving out money is that care. The real care is actually taking care of them, taking out time for them, inshallah. Okay. So now let's continue. So, nay, but you treat not the orphans with kindness and generosity. Okay, now moving on to the next ayat number 18. And urge not one another on the feeding of al-miskin. Now, this is also a very, very important ayat. Okay, so what we do, mostly the nemat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, what we do, we keep on enjoying those ourselves. We don't share with the miskin. We don't give food to the miskin. Neither we do it ourselves, nor ask others to do it. Maybe once in a blue moon we do it. It's not that we don't do it at all. Maybe once in a blue moon, but we should do it more often, inshallah. We should share with them our meals. The more meals we share, the more reward we will be getting, inshallah. And you should give to them whatever you eat. Okay, not that you eat some very high quality rice and give the miskin a very low quality rice. This is not the way. So what the kind of food that we are eating, we should share with the miskin. So not only we have to share it ourselves, but we have to urge others also to do it. So this ayat is talking about doing it yourself and urging or asking others to do this. Okay, so let's make it a point today that today I'm going to share my meal with one miskin at least, and ask my friend, my relative, or my neighbor to do it. Okay, so let's make this action point our action today, inshallah. Okay, now moving on to the next ayat, ayat 19. And you devour the inheritance all with greed. So the inheritance, see, there all of us, there's a lot of oppression in inheritance also, especially in India. You will see that most of the time the daughters are not given any part of the inheritance. What they are given, they are rather given dowry. So this is just the opposite of the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when in our own homes, what we should do, we should make sure that our parents or our families are following the rules of inheritance, those rules which have been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us. We should make sure. If somebody is not listening, what we should do, we should request that person. We should humbly explain this, that no, the rules of inheritance are very important and we cannot ignore them. And if we do not follow these rules, if we do not share inheritance according to the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the hereafter we are going to face severe punishment because of that. So each and every one of us has to bring about a change. Let me think that I am going to change the situation in my home. Similarly, another sister can think and promise herself that she's going to change the situation in her own home. So slowly, we are going to bring about a change in the society. If each of us make a promise to ourselves that we are going to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rules of inheritance and make our parents, our relatives, our friends follow it, inshallah. Okay? And doing this or devouring inheritance in a wrong way is a great sin. And who does it? Those who are greedy. And you devour the inheritance all with greed. The greedy do this. And you love wealth with much love. So the love of wealth is there in each one's heart. Everyone loves wealth. It's there. But we have to fight this, right? We have to take out the love of wealth and fill it with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But people love wealth with much love. There's a lot of love for wealth. You see these days what is happening everywhere. You see wealth everywhere. People are just becoming more and more materialistic. You can see on social media, you can see on the, whatever you see on the media also, everywhere. Who is so honored these days? The wealthy people are most honorable in our eyes. So this is becoming a norm. No matter how bad or wrong that person is, the more wealth he has, the more honor he gets in the society. So people are loving wealth, or people love wealth, and this has been the norm since time immemorial, that people love wealth with much love. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us in ayat number 21, nay, when the earth is ground to powder. Now again, immediately the shift is towards the day of recompense or the day of judgment. Immediately. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shifting it to this. Nay, when the earth is ground to powder, and Lord comes with the angels in rows. Subhanallah. So what will happen that day? On the day of judgment, the earth will become powder. So what will this wealth or will this wrongful inheritance benefit us? No, not at all. Nothing is going to remain of the earth. Everything will be destroyed. All wealth, all deceptions, everything of this world, this earth will be destroyed. It will be completely ground into powder. Sorry. So imagine how powerful the day of judgment is going to be. And your Lord, what will happen that day? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come with angels in rows. Subhanallah. So, if we even close our eyes and think about it, a sort of, habit is there on our hearts. If we really contemplate on this ayat and imagine what will happen on the day of judgment, Nothing is there. Only we are there and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. So we will be facing our Lord with our deeds, our actions. Okay? Nothing is there. No, we don't have anything. We don't own anything on that day. Only we will be there and our amal will be there with us. Our actions, our sayings, our speech will be there with us that day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come that day with angels, and those angels will be in rows. And what will happen? Ayat number 23 now tells us, and hell will be brought near on that day. So hell will be brought near on that day. Will man remember what? Sorry, will man remember? So on that day will man remember. But how will that remembrance then avail him? So when the man sees the hellfire, when the man sees Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's angels, what happens? He starts remembering. He had forgotten that he's going to meet his Lord, that there's going to come a day when he has to give his own accountability. He had forgotten, completely forgotten, and he was lost. He was after wealth. He used to love wealth, and he was just striving to earn more and more wealth. But on that day, what happened? He will start remembering. Now, will this remembrance benefit that man that day? No, it's not going to benefit him. Now, here again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is questioning us, again, giving us knowledge through questioning. And that question is, how will that remembrance then avail him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is questioning. So, how will that remembrance avail him? It will not avail him, definitely. And ayat number 24 tells us, he will say, man will say, alas, would that I had sent forth good deeds for this life. Now, which life is that this person talking about? Can you tell me, dear sisters? That is, now, which life is this person talking about? Akhirah, right. Not worldly life. Worldly life has already ended. Now, this person is talking about, alas, would that I had sent forth good deeds for this, my life, for this life which is going to come. He's empty. He doesn't has any good deeds. So he is lamenting. He's crying that if only I had sent good deeds for the life which is about to come, for the hereafter, for the eternal life. This was a temporary life which ended. Now, if only I had sent good deeds ahead of me for this hereafter, for the continuous eternal life. So this person will be crying over this, over the life of the future. That is the life, the eternal life, or the life after the day of judgment. Okay. So on that day, none will punish as he will punish. Subhanallah. May Allah protect us all from his punishment. So on that day, now here this ayat is talking about the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whenever we hear such kind of ayats, we should immediately seek Allah's protection. So on that day, none will punish as he will punish. May Allah protect us from his punishment, and may Allah forgive all our sins. And this is the best month to ask forgiveness. Okay, and to seek Allah's forgiveness and to free ourselves from the hellfire. So let's all strive for it and strive for Jannah, inshallah. Ayat number 26, and none will bind the wicked disbelievers and the polytheists as he will bind. So now this day, what will happen? Nobody is going to bind the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bind the oppressors, those who do wrong, the disbelievers, those who used to oppress other people. They will be completely binded that day. There will be no escape for them. Ayat number 27, it will be said to the pious. Now, see, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about punishment, on just after that, just immediately after that, in one or two ayats after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about his mercy. Okay. And how he will reward the pious people. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately after this, after telling us about the hereafter, about the day of judgment and the punishment that will be faced by the disbelievers, the wrongdoers, Immediately after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now talking about the reward that will be given to the pious or the righteous slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's ayat number 27 describes it. Now it will be said to the pious believers of Islamic monotheism, O you, the one in complete rest and satisfaction. So how will be the believers on that day? What will be the state of the believers? Here you can see the state of the believers and the state of the disbelievers, both are described. On one side, the disbelievers will be crying. The disbeliever man will cry and he will regret that why he didn't send any good deeds for the life that is going to come. So on one hand, he will be crying and he will be regretful. On the other end, what will happen? The believers will be in rest and satisfaction. So may Allah make us amongst those. Ameen. So the believers will be in complete rest and satisfaction. They will be happy because they used to work hard in this world. They used to strive for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They used to spend their time only and only in the works of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All their thoughts, their actions, their sayings, their intentions were for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. So those people on that day will be in complete rest and satisfaction because they used to work hard to reach this position. They used to work hard in this world to reach this position, inshallah. So may Allah make us amongst those. So what will be said to them? Come back to your Lord. So they will be called back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come back to your Lord, well pleased yourself and well pleasing to him. So the believers will be well pleased, they will be happy, they will be content, and then they will also be pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we should always strive for in this world, dear sisters, what should be our work for, or whatever we do in our life, for example, I'm doing a job, for example, I'm involved in any worldly work. So my intention should always be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I have the right intention here, inshallah, my right intention will be there on the day of judgment. This will give us peace, inshallah. So we should always have this in mind that we have to correct and rectify our intentions, and we should keep on doing it. Not just once you have made an intention. No, you have to keep on rectifying again and again. You have to check your heart whether whether I'm doing this to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or whether I'm doing this to get fame, or whether I'm doing this for my own importance, okay, to become powerful, or for any worldly gain. So we should constantly keep checking our hearts and ourselves, what my intention in doing any particular work is, and we should constantly do this, not only in Ramzan, after Ramzan also. So keeping the right intention is very important. Okay, and what should be our intention? Our intention should purely should be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to please the world, not to please any person, not to please anyone, or not to please ourselves also. Whatever we do, we should do it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and we should keep this in mind. So now on that day, those who strive for pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will be well pleased with themselves. And also their Lord will be pleased with these people. Okay. And they will be said, enter you then among my honored slaves. So on that day, these people with the right intention, who are doing righteous deeds, who are working hard, who are toiling, working in this world for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on that day, they will be called the honored. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor them and ask them to enter among his honored slaves and enter you my paradise. Subhanallah. So may Allah make us amongst those who enter paradise, who are honored, and may Allah make our intentions correct, and we should also keep on working on it, dear sisters, because shaitan is a great enemy. What happens? We start with the right intention, but just when we are about to finish a task, or maybe in the middle of the task, he comes in and he steals from our heart and our intentions change. Maybe I start this sessions to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but if I get praise from my friends, I feel very happy, and then suddenly my intention is changing and I'm doing these sessions only to please my friends or make them happy. No, subhanallah. I have to protect myself from this. So for that, I have to constantly rectify my intention. That if I'm doing these sessions, I am only doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if my intention is wrong in any way, or shaitan is stealing from it, may Allah forgive me and protect me from this. Similarly, for each and every task, for example, you're going for Taraweeh, your intention should be pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to show off, okay, and not to become good in anyone's eyes. So any deed that we are doing, any task or anything that we are doing, and we have to constantly remind each other, and we have to get the reminders through the Quran. That's why it's very important to be connected with the Quran, because what happens, we are taken away, we are lost by the deceptions of the world. One day I am doing a lot of hard work, the other day shaitan is overpowering me and I'm leaving that work. No, I have to be constant, inshallah. I have to have the right intention, and only then will my reward will be complete peace and honor with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And who are the other honored slaves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking, that you enter among them? Who are the other honored slaves with whom we are going to enter, inshallah? Those who work righteous deeds. May Allah make us amongst them. So who are the other honored slaves? Can you tell me? Yes, the other honored slaves are the prophets, okay, and the righteous who already are there, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already honored. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make us also enter amongst them, with them, inshallah, to his paradise. Yes, very beautiful. Very beautiful. Not both these ayats are very beautiful. Jazakallah khair for your comment. Yes. Now here, any sister would like to add anything, please do. Otherwise, I'll quickly move on to the reflection and the action points. So action points, what we have got from this surah, just tell me quickly. First and foremost, we should be grateful. We should not exult when we are giving anything good. We should not exult. We should be grateful. Whenever we face any problems, we should never complain. Then we should feed the miskin and also ask others to feed them. And we should learn from the past nations. We should never repeat their mistakes. They were much more powerful than us. But what happened? What was their end? They were destroyed. Why? Because of their oppression, their transgression, and their disobedience. And greed is very bad. We should try to help our parents, our relatives, and everyone to follow the complete rules of inheritance, inshallah. Okay? So this is also one action point that we get from this surah. And feeding the miskin, then taking care of the orphans and actually trying to spend time with them, or the miskin, whatever you get, and whenever you get an opportunity, and trying to find out such opportunities also. When finds an opportunity, the opportunity comes on knocking on the door, when one is actually looking for an opportunity. So inshallah, it will come to you. You will get a chance, okay, to personally care for the orphans. So whenever we get a chance, we should do it. And what are the other action points? To correct or rectify our intentions, to make our intention purely to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever we do in this world, our action should only, or our intention should only be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we rectify our intention and we work righteousness and we do hard work for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, we will be amongst his honored slaves on the day of Qiyamah. And we will be content and happy and pleased. So even thinking about this gives us great peace. So imagine what will happen when we actually become like these, inshallah, like these honored slaves. So we should all work hard for it, inshallah. Okay. So this is also one of the action points. Now let me move to the reflection points. It's almost similar to these, to the action points. Here, the significance of time is emphasized. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by dawn, the 10 nights, even odd, that in order to emphasize the importance of time. That time is very important, and this is time by which we are being tested. Okay. Then again, lessons from history is the second reflection point. We should keep on reflecting when we hear about these nations. then we should know that the third reflection point is wealth and poverty both are tests. Okay, when we are given something, it's also a test, and when something is taken away from us, it is also a test. So in both situations we should be patient. Then arrogance comes in with prosperity, but we should avoid it, and we should never despair in hardship, and we should never mistreat the weak. Rather, if we are seeing also someone doing it, we should stop that person. Okay, then hereafter is certain and it's about to come, and the arrogant will be most regretful on the day of judgment, and that day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do justice. So we should also have faith in Allah's justice. And the ultimate longing of any soul is peace, right? See, everybody is running after peace these days. You can see the wellness workshops, so many have been developed, the spas, they take so much, they charge so much. The spas, you know what a spa is? It is a place of wellness where a person goes and rests, and he or she gets a soothing feeling after coming out of that spa. So these spas and these destination, holidays have become very trending and very common. Even the apartments and the societies that you see these days, they are developing it in such a way that the society or the apartment is built in order to bring peace to a person. So soothing, greenery, a lot. The more greenery there is in a society, the more costly it is. The more soothing a society is, the more costly it is. So each and every soul is actually longing for peace. And where will we get that peace? That peace will only come through remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it will only come in the hereafter. Okay, when we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely, that peace comes to us. Even in this world, our hearts become content. Okay, although we are facing difficult times, our hearts will not be disturbed. Okay, so with that, let me end the session today. Inshallah, we will be meeting day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, Sister Wahida Baji will be taking your session. Jazakallah khair for being so patient and listening to me and for joining the session. If any sister has any questions or wants to discuss anything, please feel free to do so. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Let's end the session. Jazakallah khair, dear sisters, for joining. Astaghfirullahi Rabbi min kulli zambi wa tubu ilayhi wa salamun alal mursaleen walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.